Good morning, welcome to Auckland. We're here for the Wooden Boat Festival in the first week of March, and we've just arrived on the Fuller's Ferry from Half Moon Bay. So we've just arrived downtown and I'm panning around and you should be able to see the Sky Tower in the background. Looking forward to a good day at the Wooden Boat Festival.
Let's give him a countdown. 3, 2, 1. Great work there from the East.
and they hit a pole on very carefully that way. Right? The rope snapped. I've looked on the internet. Really whips it out.
Welsford here, he's going to talk about it, and he set his sail up in these windy conditions, and I'd like to say thank you very much for coming and showing us, John, all the way from your place way down south.
Okay, now first thing is I wasn't anticipating setting the rig up today, so I didn't bring some of the little bits, which I'll explain. So this is a balanced lug sail. They call it a balanced lug sail because some of the sail is ahead of the mast, balancing what's after the mast. Right? So we've got 4 sides. We can adjust all 4 sides. It's more tunable than most rigs. So we can adjust, for example, the depth of the draft in the bottom half by the outhaul tension on the boom. So we do that at the after end there, and I don't make mine adjustable underway, but I'll tune the boat and then set it up together. Same on the yard at the top. That spar up the top is called a yard. It's more than a yard long, but it's a yard. Yep. And that's where the word halyard comes from. Haul yard. It's the rope that you use to pull it up. It's the haul yard. Yep. So we can adjust the draft of the sail on that by 2 means. One is we can put that powerful little block of tackle there and crank tension onto it and bend the yard, which pulls some of the shape out of the top third of the sail. And if you're sailing in really heavy weather, that can be very handy because it depowers the sail high up. It can also, in really light weather, improve your pointing angle a little bit because in really light weather, there is not enough energy in the airflow to stay attached to a deeply cambered sail, so you need them a little flatter. And you can do that with the downhaul tension. So the downhaul tension adjusts that. Looking at the yard, you can see it's floating free of the mainsail, the mast, and I would normally have what we call a parrel. That is a lashing that goes around the mast and it's got some beads on it, and it runs up and down the mast and holds that. I find that I don't need it on the boom downhaul because the boom downhaul is pretty solid. It's set up there and it holds it in position. So again, adjusting the draft at the top of the sail, which is really important. We do that by outhaul tension. We do that by flexing the yard. We flex the yard, not with pulling on the halyard. I mean, that's hard work. So we pull it down, the whole sail down, block and tackle in there. So downhaul tension on a balanced lug sail is very important. Now, if I'm out sailing with a group that I want to really impress, then I have a second block of tackle set up in the same position as the downhaul, and I set it on that loop on the underside of the forward end of the boom, and I'll crank that on hard, and that pulls the luff down really straight. Right? And I can ease the after downhaul, the main one, a little bit, and swing the boom backwards, and that sets the sail up for windward sailing, particularly in lighter weather. So we've got all those means of adjusting draft, position, sheeting. We don't sheet it hard. The sail with this one, with the after end of the boom, just about where the gunwale is, because it's the mizzen that sets my pointing angle overall. When the boat is sailing upwind, go closer and closer, eventually, because this mainsail is curving the airflow, and that means that the mizzen can't be sheeted any closer, because the wind is coming from out here for the mainsail, but it's coming from in here, reflected by this, for the mizzen. So it's the mizzen that sets your pointing angle. So the mizzen needs to be fairly flat cut. Or, in this case, I crank the outhaul on the sprit boom out really hard, and we've got a curve in the mast, which does what? It flattens the sail. So reaching, I can ease downhaul here, which means the sail is more full. I can ease the outhaul on the mizzen, which makes the sail more full. And reaching, this thing's a screamer. 9 or 9.5 knots on a reach. Just gets quite exciting, but it gets a lot more interesting for the small keel boats who hit 5.5 or 6 knots and they're stuck and I'm gone. So my theory is you design boats with really nice looking transoms and the hope that that's all they're going to see. Yeah? So the balanced lug sail is a very versatile sail. It can be really powerful off the wind, reaching and running. Don't need a spinnaker, because with this hung out, you've got all that area really effective. Whereas if you try and set a jib downwind, even with a pole, it's not presenting all of its area. So these are really powerful reaching and running sails, and they can be effective enough upwind to give you a pretty good performance. So you can see that I've been tuning this one. I've moved the boom back and the yard back, so that the tethering slot is the original place.
Did you want to show us how to
This sail,
John, did you want to show us how to do a reef?
yeah, that's a good idea. We'll put a reef.
Well, they're going to put a reef in. How do you reef a lug sail? When it's bloody windy, how do you do it?
You reef it with great difficulty. So I carry a box on the board here which is filled up with great difficulty, and any time I've got something that I can only do with great difficulty, I open the box and take some out. So I've always got some. Alright, so we ease the downhaul a bit. We've held it off enough for the reef. Now, I will have this marked at a later date so that I know there'll be a mark on the halyard which will show me where to cleat it for each reef. So we've got 2 reefs there.
So there's going to be 2 reefs going in. Second reef.
this sort of use, the boat sails fine like that. And normally a bit quicker, but like I said, I wasn't set up to do a demonstration today. But there's a few bits that aren't here that should be. But a couple of things. I would normally have the first reef on one side of the boom in one colour, and the cleats for it on that side of the boom. The second reef will be on the other side of the boom with another colour. So they're really easy to identify, because you're normally under a bit of stress at that point, and it's easy to make mistakes. So I'm trying to do everything to prevent those mistakes. Now with the boat sitting out in the open, with the mizzen sheeted in, reefing on this is really easy. Everything goes good, and it puts the barrel around the yard at the mast. That's not flailing around. So easy to reef, easy to set. You've got one rope to pull it up, one rope to pull it down with a powerful tackle on it. I was just talking to somebody who was setting his boat up. I said you're going to need a 2-part, and then underneath the deck where he was going to put all the stuff in, it needs another 3-part. So that you've got 5 or 6 parts to pull. So you need a lot of downhaul tension with these. And that's the key to sailing balanced like so. Once you get the positioning of the boom and the yard right, it's downhaul tension. Ease it a little bit, reaching and running, pull it on hard going upward.
John, two questions. One, what wind height, how much wind would you need to get that, come down to that size sail? You know, what would you,
above about 25.
25.
I've got one of those little wind speed meters to propeller in it, right? And I've been sailing with this with 2 reefs, with the mizzen furled, and it's been saying 35 plus. And I had a look at it and I thought, look at that again. I don't want to know. So I put it away. But yeah, 4-7 Beaufort. Gale, full gale.
The second question is, do you ever reef or get rid of the mizzen?
Yes. And you can see how it's furled before, right? And I'll furl it up now.
Okay. So what wind would you, what height wind would you get rid of that?
Lots. No, above about maybe 30, and then I'll, because I use that to adjust the feel of the helm. I can have it only just drawing, and it's giving a little bit of drive, but I have the helm adjusted so that it's not too heavy and not too light. I need a bit of weather helm, so if something goes wrong and I let go, the boat will round up. Because with it furled up and 2 reefs in, it's actually a bit neutral. So let's put it away. Yeah, so I can do it quite comfortably standing here. Easy to stand. I can stand in even quite violent conditions. The boat doesn't move around that much and get that tucked away. So 2 reefs in here, I'm okay up to about 35 knots. Questions?
This, we have both Fiona, that much there, and she has the Guinness Book of Records for the longest sailing dinghy in the world from A to B. She's an expert sailor, and you can't get much better, honestly. We have Linda here. She took up the sport a little bit later in life, but she has done remarkably well and loves it. And she will. So they're going to be dealing with 3 boats: the Bobcat, the Captain's Gig, and the Scamp. And I'm going to leave you to it with them to look after you.
We're both aware that there's not that many women in our Dinghy Cruising group, and despite the fact that we see lots of women taking sailing lessons, crewing on boats, it doesn't necessarily translate into yacht or boat ownership. We don't see that many women boat owners relative to the amount of guys, so it doesn't kind of correlate to the amount of women who learn to sail. So we think that dinghy cruising and BB cruises is a really good first step into boat ownership. And we have found that this particular dinghy cruising group a really nice space for no BS, basically. People are enthusiastic about sailing. It's not about how fancy your boat is or who's got the flashiest sails. It's a really kind of comfortable environment.
Yep.
So if you're starting off in your boat owning journey, one of the things about a small boat is that you can practice all those big boat skills in a small boat. So when I go sailing on my little boat there, which is the smallest boat here, I use all the skills I used when I was sailing like a 40-foot feeder. The weather, the navigation, deciding where to go. But the advantage of a sailing dinghy that you're cruising on is that you can actually pull it up the beach. So this group, when we sail as a group or we sail individually, we either sleep on board the boat using a tent on the boat, like this boat has, or people will carry a tent and actually sleep ashore in campground. So if you think of some of the campgrounds we have east of Auckland, we have a number of campgrounds in the regional park, and a lot of those are really conducive to small boat sailing. You set it made to be, and you can put your boat up there.
My husband and I learned to sail quite spontaneously in our 50s. We just moved back to Auckland from Wellington, living in Wellington for a long time, where it's hot, water's freezing. And we were down at Herne Bay Beach one day, and someone sailed in a boat like any one of these, and sat there with their kids, and the kids had to swim, and then they sailed off again. And that just looked like the most wonderful thing I'd ever seen, really, as a hobby or as a sport. And I just said to my husband, "Do you think we could do that?" Let's give it a go, and then we just went from there. We did some courses with Coast Guard, a couple of courses with Coast Guard at night. We did some sailing lessons with Constantly Cruising Club, who were great, and it was very affordable. And then we bought this sweet beauty here, and this is a cat boat from North America. It's called the West Auckland. It's a nice, easy, simple boat to sail. You couldn't get anything much simpler than this, I don't think. One big sail, one sheet to hold, very simple rig. We never even considered a keel boat for lots of reasons. I mean, money was a big one, but more so we wanted to be able to sail from different places. We didn't want to have a boat moored at wherever, on a mooring at the harbour or not Westhaven, but somewhere. And then you kind of stuck to sailing in the same waters. And the beauty of these is you just hook it on the back of your car and drive to Rotorua and go on the lake. We just went down to Raglan a couple of weeks ago and sailed around the harbour there. It was nice. So, I was just thinking while you're talking, Fiona, and this sounds like I'm boasting, but we just did a week sailing in the Greek islands, and it was with family in a big 46-foot Juno. And you're really not in the water in the same way as you are in this. You're sit in this and you're in the water and it's right there, and you can put your hand over the side and put your hand in the water. You can fish off the back if you wanted to. It's a much more elemental thing to do than being in a big camper. Much cheaper, obviously. Store it in the backyard. Yeah, there's just lots of pluses. Our idea of going cruising is a bit more modest than lots of people in our group. What we'll do is, go and launch in Takapuna, sail over to Rangitoto, have a picnic on the beach there at Mackenzie Bay, maybe sail back to Narrow Neck, go have a coffee, or one of the East Coast bays, go have a coffee and then sail back to Takapuna, and that's a really nice afternoon there. So you don't have to go camping if you're not a camping person. You can have some really great adventures, especially around Auckland. As Fiona was saying, with the Reefing parks and harbours that we have access to.
So the advantage, obviously, of smaller boats is the initial outlay is a lot less. But if you do go looking for a small boat, one of the biggest expenses is the trailer. So if you see a boat online, trade me or somewhere, and they go currently doesn't have a current warrant of fitness, or should be able to get a warrant of fitness, I would be really careful to make sure that your trailer, the trailer you might be going to buy, actually is in good shape, because the trailer is often the most expensive part of the purchase. So if you buy a poor trailer with a very nice boat on it, you're going to be up for a minimum of about $2,000 to get your boat trailer on.
Yeah.
So think that when you go to look at boats, think very much of what condition the trailer is in. The second thing is, because the boat's so small, obviously the setting up and breaking down is much less time. The maintenance is much less time than the keel boat because you're smaller. It's less expensive, you need less varnish, less paint. So all the costs are a lot less, but you have the advantage that you can go sailing wherever you like. So you can head to the Bay of Islands this weekend and you could be in the Rotorua Lakes next weekend. And that's what appealed to me, because on a keel boat you think, oh, we've got to get the boat to the Bay of Islands and then we've got to put it on a mooring while the rest of the family come up, and then we've got to pick a weather window to get back down. All that suddenly disappears and you're getting a lot more sailing bang for your buck in a small boat.
This was $2,500 all up, including the trailer, warranted and registered. So, yeah, it's not necessarily a super expensive sport to get into. I mean, sure, not everyone has that sort of money to spare, but it's not tens of thousands of dollars to buy a boat of this size and simplicity.
And then the ongoing cost is just sort of keeping it maintained, but you don't have mooring fees, you don't have marina fees. I row rather than use an outboard, so I just stick to sail and oar, so I don't have to run an outboard or buy fuel. I think I'm probably, John only rows as well now, so most of the other guys have a small outboard, but again, that's a lot less than if you had a keel boat. Yeah. So we just like to encourage women who've done some sailing, and it's also a good first step into a bigger boat if that's your aspiration. But if you're in a big boat and it's getting a bit hard because the cost of mooring is going up, it's really hard to get insurance now to keep a boat on a swing mooring. So if all those are getting too much, don't get out of sailing. Think of moving down into a cruising dinghy or a small trailer yacht, because it definitely does open up the scope and it takes all that pain away and you just get to enjoy your boat.
You don't have to fill up a giant gas tank. That's $3 a gallon.
So does anybody have any questions?
Oh, you sold it. Oh. I don't want to buy a boat.
Yeah. So on this one, I'll just show you the scamp.
With relationship with you guys?
Okay, so the Scamp is Alex's boat. He built it over 3 years. That boat is about the same length as this boat, but this boat can do a lot more. So it's much more, it's John's design. They're well recognized for their sea kindliness, and so that can do a lot more challenging conditions than this boat would. So it's horses for courses. So that would be my aspirational next boat for me. This is the bed platform. That's all it takes. And when I'm under sail, those are stuck back here and are strapped in. come into a bay, drop the hook, put those in. I normally have an inflatable mattress, put that on. I have a tent. I'm just in the process of redesigning my tent, so that's why I've removed it. But the boom lifts up a bit and just hangs on the topping lift. And then a tent that looks essentially like a dome tent comes over the top. So that's the sleeping organised. We've got some lighting there. There's the galley. And you've already bucket and bucket. And if you want to have a wash, then we just use solar shower, which you put on the foredeck. You get into the anchorage and heat up the water and you can have a shower. What more do you want?